Hello everybody and welcome to the video. Um, as you guys probably know, this is one of those trophies in FF VII Remake that no matter how many tips and tricks you look up, you still have to be the one to basically put it into action, right? You still have to be the one to press the buttons and everything. So there's no like, this will definitely work, you'll definitely get the trophy kind of method. No such thing exists. So what I want to do in this video basically is talk about some stuff I noticed about this trophy challenge that may prove useful, like basically certain things about Jules, his I don't know, should I say patterns or anything? Stuff I noticed about this challenge basically that I hope is useful, that might be useful. And the second part of this video is basically what I did to make this easier for me to eventually complete after hours of retrying it. Okay, so alright, part 1, some stuff I noticed. But before I start, okay, rule number 1 of this trophy, you cannot screw up at all. The time loss that results from you failing a pull-up is just horrible. You lose like, what, 5 to 10 seconds, and you lose the speed / tempo of your pull-ups, which is basically you will not get the trophy at that point. The only time I could think of that it might be okay to screw up is round 1 at the very end, like the last second or something. That's the only time I can think of that it's okay to screw up. But even then, that could cost you that single pull-up you needed to beat him at the end. So let's try and get this perfect, okay? You need to be able to do that at least, not fail. That is the first part of getting this done well. Getting it. The trophy, basically. Okay, so let's start proper. Stuff I noticed. In the pro pull-ups, this Jules fellow, his final score tends to range from 41 to 44. From the bloody a lot of attempts that I tried. This is generally the range of scores he tends to get, and more often than not, I see 44. But there are times he gets less than that. Okay, so one thing I noticed about Jules, he always screws up a total of 2 times. In the first round, he will screw up once. But when this happens is basically random. In the second round, he will screw up around the final 10 to 6 second mark. In between, he sometimes wavers a bit, like he's struggling, but it's minor at best and only grants you maybe a second or so. Another thing I noticed is that his total final score tended to be lower the earlier he screws up in round 1, and conversely, his total score tends to be higher the later he screws up in round 1. Although, counterintuitively, his round 1 score tends to be higher the earlier he screws up in round 1, when you would think you'd want his round 1 score to be lower when that happens. But no, the later he screws up, the lower his round 1 score, but the higher his total score. I hope you could follow that rather confusing way of putting it. Basically, if his round 1 score is low, he tends to make that up later at the end and get a higher score. But if his round 1 score is sort of decent, his score later is slightly less. That's just my experience, and it could be subjective, but it's what I've seen happen. I'll expand a bit more on this later with a hypothesis that I kind of have. Anyway, at the end of round 1, his score is usually 18 to 20, depending on the timing of his screw up. In my experience anyway, you basically want him to screw up between his 2nd to 5th pull up. This tends to be what lands him at the 20 point mark, which is what he got in my successful attempt. Whereas every time he got 18 points instead, he makes up for it later, and well, that was a failed run. Anyway, as a general rule, for round 1, you want to be at least 2 points ahead of him. So if he's at 18, you want to be at 20, right? And if he's at 20, you want to be at 22. Something like that. 2 is generally a good lead to have. I'm not sure if it's possible to win with a 1 lead, but it might. If you're tied with him or less, you might as well just retry, really, to be honest. Well, then again, even if you're 2 points ahead, you can still very easily lose to him. Like, if you watch the video in the background, he was, like, in one of my failed attempts, he was 18 in round 1, but got to 43 by the end. But in the round I was successful. He was at 20 in round 1, but only got to 41 by the end, which kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier. In the former, where he got 18, he failed on the 6th pull-up for me, and in the latter, he failed at the 2nd pull-up. So this is my hypothesis, based on what I talked about earlier. The later he screws up in round 1, his round 1 score is lower, due to the momentum he built up having suddenly been lost. But he makes up for it in round 2 by going even harder. Whereas if he does okay in round 1 and gets like 20 points, it's not made up for later on in round 2. That's just my theory anyway. Now for part 2, this is just how I did it, and I have no idea if it will help people, but if it helps even a single person, then this video will have been worth it, I suppose. So what I did was, rather than try and follow Tifa's movements with my hands, I would repeat out loud the combination of buttons I needed to press in order, because, you know, the time you spend thinking before you press could be precious seconds lost, and if you take too long thinking about it, Tifa will automatically fall off the bar and you will fail. So, for example, as you can see in the video, I will go up, down, right, left, up, down, right, left, up, down, right, left, up, down, right, left, something like that. I don't really stop to think, I just press the buttons when my voice comes out of my mouth and tells me it's this button. And when the speed rises, I also raise the tempo, so up, down, right, left, up, down, right, left, up, down, right, left, something like that. So what I was doing with this method is, rather than try and use my fingers to match the, you know, increasing speed, increasing tempo of these pull-ups, my fingers react to my voice. And when my voice speeds up, my fingers follow the increase in speed of my voice. So it may start slow, like, you know, up, down, left, right, and then maybe later on, you know, it becomes up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right, or something like that. I find that this helps me, because I'm a bit forgetful. I forget the button combination and screw up miserably when I do. And of course, if I'm being overly careful and think too much, I don't speed up enough, and I just can't beat him. And if you want one final tip, this guy, he always overtakes you midway to the end. So just ignore his score and focus on getting your button presses in. Keep calm, don't rush, but also try not to lose too much speed. The way I handled it, like I said, was repeating out loud the combination and letting my fingers follow my voice rather than what's on screen. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. Hopefully this helps even at least one of you who's struggling out there. Then I will be a happy man. Thank you for watching, and I hope you get this really difficult trophy.